morning. I'm Under Sheriff Pat Ivey, and the men and women of the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office are pleased to be hosting the annual Domestic Violence Awareness Month kickoff event. Before I begin, I want to thank our special guests who are here with us today. Present today are Dr. Gail Patton, the Chief Operating Officer of the Hubbard House, Joyce Marr, the Executive Director of the Betty Griffin House in St. Johns County, Peggy Payne, the Executive Director of the Quigley House in Clay County, Heather Jones, the Executive Director of Micah's Place in Nassau County, Kim Yetta, a survivor of domestic violence. Along with our criminal justice partners, I have Sheriff Bill Leeper, Under Sheriff George Luters, and Director Roy Henderson from the Nassau County Sheriff's Office. From Clay County Sheriff's Office, I have Colonel Craig Aldridge, and from the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office, I have Lieutenant Toby Irwin and Sergeant Kevin Cronin. I have Teresa Simak from the State Attorney's Office and Dr. Charles Moreland from the Mayor's Office. Also in attendance are Hubbard House board members and members of the Fatality Review Team that issue a report on domestic violence related to homicides each year. Also in attendance today from JSO, I've got our Director of Patrol Enforcement, Ray Walden, our Director of Homeland Security and Investigations, Mike Bruno, our Chief of Health Services, Daryl Daniels, who's also a Hubbard House board member, Assistant Chief of Crimes Against Persons, Scott Dingy, Assistant Chief of Crimes Against Property, Carson Tranquil, Assistant Chief Greg Burton is our Zone 6 Commander, Police Lieutenant Elizabeth Kenny, and members of the Special Assault Unit, as well as other JSO members who are committed to this issue. We also have our victims advocate, Kathy Pinnell. All of us up here stand together to show our commitment in addressing the issue of domestic violence in our region. We know the importance of working together to make sure that we are a united front on this issue, and we are out in front of this issue on all levels, to include enforcement, social services, and public education. Domestic violence continues to be a genuine issue in this country. Domestic violence partners may be married, intimate partners, in a dating relationship, have a child together, or related by blood. Children in homes where there is domestic violence are more likely to be abused and or neglected. Even if the child is not physically harmed, they may have emotional and behavioral problems. Domestic violence happens in every community, in all kinds of families and relationships. Persons of any socioeconomic class, culture, religion, sexual orientation, marital status, age, and sex can be victims or perpetrators of domestic violence. Often, domestic violence and family violence is an uncomfortable topic for the public to hear about. But for us, it's a good thing. Every time a victim finds the courage to call the police and ask the police to intervene. The reality is, many domestic calls we receive don't meet the criteria of a criminal act. For example, there are civil matters we get called to out, like a spouse that tells her partner to move and an argument ensues. We get a call because the individual is refusing to leave the property and the situation has the potential to escalate. I want our officers to answer each and every call that comes in and be prepared to respond and assist, even though it technically may not be a criminal incident. Remember, intervention can stop escalation. As of last Tuesday, September 22nd, there have been 4,383 reported incidents of domestic violence in Duval County this year. This is down from last year when at this same event we showed more than 5,000 reported incidents year to date. For those potential victims, the sooner we can help get them to the necessary services the first time a domestic incident occurs, the more we can help prevent a potential domestic murder from occurring in the future. In 2014, there were 18 domestic violence related murders in Duval County. In 3 of these cases, the suspect also committed suicide. As of Friday, September 18th of this year, There have been 13 domestic violence-related murders in Duval County. 3 of these cases were murder-suicide. To break this down even further, 3 of these cases were a child killing a parent or grandparent, and 8 were adults being killed by their spouse, boyfriend, or girlfriend. Ladies and gentlemen, if this keeps up, we're on track to equal last year's numbers. That's unacceptable. Let me stress even further that in all of 2013, there were only 7 domestic murders. To those victims of domestic violence, listen, we have an excellent domestic violence prevention program known as INVEST. This is the Intimate Violence Enhanced Services Team, which is a collaborative response to domestic violence involving JSO, the Hubbard House, the State Attorney's Office, and the city's Victims Services Unit. Between October 1st of 2014 and September 22nd of this year, the INVEST team had reviewed more than 7,100 reports for its 2014-2015 fiscal year. Out of those, 556 reports were identified as potential cases, with 92 victims accepting services. That's fewer than 20%, 16.5 to be exact. Of those we identified as being in harm's way, actually accepting services. The providers are here to help. Please accept their assistance. Between September 2014 and last month, we served 1,219 arrest warrants for domestic violence crimes. We still have over 530 active warrants in the system for domestic-related incidents. Just remember, domestic violence is not gender-specific, race-specific, or limited to any one socioeconomic class. And it's important to recognize the 4 main types of abuse, which are physical abuse, which includes violent acts such as slapping, hitting, punching, or choking someone, throwing objects at them, physically restraining someone. Emotional abuse, which includes name-calling, insults, verbal attacks, harming or threatening to harm a person's pets, and so forth. Sexual abuse. Some examples of this include someone forcing another person to engage in unwanted sex or sexual acts that make them uncomfortable, denying an individual's contraception or protection, or forcing them to watch pornography. And lastly, economic abuse. This includes not allowing someone to work, isolating them by limiting access to money, or controlling financial decisions or taking control of another person's paycheck. More information about those incidents that I just highlighted is available on Hubbard House's website at hubbardhouse.org. All of us up here have a common goal of putting an end to domestic violence and helping prevent domestic murder. This is one type of murder that is largely preventable. To reach our goal, we will continue our partnerships with these shelters and law enforcement officials in our neighboring counties. It is vital for us to raise awareness about domestic violence and about the help that is available at no cost. Thank you. Now we will have a reading of a proclamation by Dr. Charles Moore. Thank you.
On behalf of Mayor Lenny Curry, I want to take this opportunity to say thank you for the amazing work that all the agencies, organizations are doing in this area of domestic violence. It's a quality of life issue, and the mayor is committed to working with you to improve in this area. We can do more. We can do better. We want to bring people together. We want to eliminate this area that we see that's robbing people of the joy and the quality of life that they can have. So with that being said, I'd like to take this opportunity to read the proclamation by our mayor. It says, whereas domestic violence is a crime that endangers women, children, and men globally, and in 1987, the first Domestic Violence Awareness Month was observed in the United States, and whereas in 2014, a reported 3,550 victims of domestic violence in Florida, including women, children, and men, from a wide range of economic, racial, and social backgrounds were served by the more than 40 identified local domestic violence programs. And an estimated 3 million children witnessed domestic violence within their homes nationwide. And whereas the crime of domestic violence not only destroys an individual's privacy, dignity, security, and humanity, it also the third leading cause of homelessness among families, according to the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development. And whereas only 25% of domestic violence incidents are reported each year, according to the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence, making domestic violence one of the most chronically underreported crimes. And whereas the destructive impact of domestic violence is far-reaching, affecting families, corporations, criminal justice systems, medical communities, and society as a whole, and domestic violence costs an estimated $37 billion a year or more with regards to law enforcement involvement, legal work, medical and mental health treatment, and loss of productivity in the workplace. And whereas it is vital for our community to support victims of domestic violence, as well as their children who suffer grave financial, physical, and psychological losses, to impose legal sanctions on perpetrators of domestic violence and to help perpetrators overcome patterns of abusive behavior. And whereas Hubbard House Incorporated is an award-winning nonprofit organization dedicated to eradicating domestic violence in our city since 1976, providing services to over 5,000 victims of domestic violence and their children, as well as intervention services to more than 650 offenders. Now, therefore, I, Lenny Curry, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of Jacksonville, Florida, do hereby proclaim October 2015 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Thank you.
Next, we will have Teresa Simak from the State Attorney's Office for the 2014 Duval County Domestic Violence Fatality Review Report.
I'm Teresa Simak from the State Attorney's Office. I'm an Assistant State Attorney and a Supervisor in the Special Assault Division. I also have the honor of chairing the Duval County Domestic Violence Fatality Review Team. The State Attorney's Office works in conjunction with the Navy, UNF, the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, Hubbard House, Court Administration Services. It's our job every year to review the domestic violence fatalities that occurred the year before. So for 2014, our team reviewed 11 domestic violence homicides. 8 of those were intimate partner homicides. There were 45% of the suspects had documented mental health issues. In comparison to the prior 17 years, where there were only 6% documented mental health issues, this was of great concern to the team this year. Our recommendation is that if there are identified mental health issues, domestic violence screenings should be done. If you are related to or in a relationship with someone who has identified mental health issues and they refuse to get treatment, you need to be aware of the potential for violence. In 2014, 73% of the couples involved in the domestic violence homicides had separated by the time of the offense. Over the last 17 years, there were only 32%. That increase tells us that separation in a relationship or the threats of separation increase the potential for lethal violence. Awareness is needed so that the appropriate safety precautions can be taken in those situations. In 2014, 100% of the suspects were male. There is clearly an overwhelming gender disparity in Duval County. Male offenders disproportionately victimize females. In 2014, only 2 of the 11 domestic violence homicides that we reviewed had prior arrests for domestic violence between the suspect and the victim. In the prior 17 years, only 26% had priors. Sadly and unfortunately, it seems that it is only after the domestic violence homicide that friends, co-workers, and family members report to investigators that they had concerns about that relationship prior to the homicide. Today, there are 4,800 purple flags in front of the Duval County Courthouse. That represents reported cases of domestic violence this year alone, as well as representing unreported cases that they have estimated. Because as we know, many go unreported. So we are calling out to all of you, friends, family members, co-workers, and I say this year after year after year. Please speak up. Stand up and help someone. Call 911. Call a shelter and talk to somebody about what you can do to help the person that you know that you believe is a victim of domestic violence. Help somebody make a safety plan. Don't be the next family to report too late. Thank you.
Next, we'll have Dr. Gail Patton, the Chief Operating Officer of Hubbard House, in reference to raising awareness for domestic violence.
Each year in Northeast Florida, victims lose their life to domestic violence. With very few exceptions, the people dying have not called the police, have not taken advantage of what our courts can provide, and have not called their local domestic violence center. That is why Domestic Violence Awareness Month is so important. We need to raise awareness about the issue of domestic violence and the services that are available. People need to understand that domestic violence can turn deadly at any time, as it did for the 8 women who were killed by their intimate partners in 2014. Leaving, as Teresa said, or planning to leave, can be a very dangerous time for victims. So if your partner says something like, "I can't live without you," or "if I can't have you, nobody can," you need to be aware that this can become a very dangerous situation, because these are very dangerous words, and there is something behind those words. So domestic violence centers, they can help. You plan how to leave safely and plan where you can be safely. If Joyce and Heather and Peggy would please come up here. Whether you live in Baker County, Clay, Duval, Nassau, or St. Johns County, we stand here united, urging you to either call Hubbard House, Betty Griffin House, Micah's Place, or Quigley House if you are living with violence or the threat of violence. We can help. If you are in immediate danger, dial 911. If you are needing help such as shelter, counseling, safety planning, or other services, call 1-800-500-1119. We stand ready to do the best we can to help you find safety and peace. Please call if you are a victim and know you are not alone. If you are not living with violence now, but want to visibly show your support on this important issue, join law enforcement in wearing a purple ribbon this month. See purple ribbons on all of our law enforcement officials. Or put purple nail polish on your ring finger, such as this. When people ask you about either of these, you will have the opportunity to educate them about the issue of domestic violence and maybe save a life. And also, please financially support your local domestic violence center. Now I would like to introduce to you an incredibly strong and courageous survivor of domestic violence, Kenyatta Taylor, who's going to share with us her poetry.
Good morning, everyone. I'm an adult and child survivor of domestic violence. I grew up in a household where violence was the norm, and I also was in a violent relationship for over 10 years. On one occasion, my ex-husband beat me so bad that I fell to the floor, and then he proceeded to kick me in my back. This caused me to lose the use of my legs for a few months. I would go to work with black eyes and broken blood vessels. In the office, I was nicknamed Sunshine because I was very bubbly and they said I brightened up the office. But during this time in my life, I was rain. I felt alone and I was embarrassed because deep down I thought it was my fault. Once I realized the issue was not with me, but was with the abuser, my life changed. That was 4 years ago. I am no longer a victim. I am a survivor. I would like to share a poem with you all that I wrote about this time in my life, and it's called Gone. I added an additional piece that is a message to you. You are not alone, and you too will survive. This is Gone. Strong on the outside, but weak at heart. Allow a man to beat me? Those words did not exist in my vocabulary. But when it became a reality, I knew how real fear could be. And love is what I claim to be. Watching myself fade to black, not knowing if I could ever come back, not knowing if I could ever break free from the enemy, loving him more than I ever loved me, lying to my friends and family to protect the enemy, and love is what I claim to be. He loves me. That's why he does all those things to me, right? One night he came home drunk and wanted to fight. Somehow I knew in danger was my life. I took my last breath as I fell to the floor. And love is what I claim to be. And because of this, gone is what became of me. Sisters, stand strong and fight. I'm taking back my courage and strength. I'm taking back my self-confidence. I'm taking back my self-esteem. I'm taking back the values that I believe in but put aside to protect you. I'm taking back my pride. I'm taking back my spirit. I'm taking back me and also my life. I am now born again. Thank you.
I'd like to say once again thank you to everyone that's come against this issue. I'd also like to thank the media for coming and showing this is important to them also to get this out to the public. And with that, we will take any questions. If you can correct if you have questions and who you would like to direct them to.
Undersheriff, I have a question. The state does not report its domestic violence data or its supplemental homicide data to the FBI in a format that the FBI can use. And I wonder if you have any thoughts about that. Florida right now can't really compare apples to apples on its domestic violence and intimate partner violence figures relative to other states.
I think that if you were, I can't speak on behalf of the FBI or what the requirements are in reference to their reporting or what thought process they come to that decision, but you could pull the numbers individually from the individual counties and make that comparison. Maybe you have to add them up within the state, on the state, the local jurisdictions, but you should be able to come to a fairly accurate number.
Would you see some value in this state beginning to collect the data in such a way that it could give that data to the FBI and compare?
I couldn't comment on that. I know that we keep accurate numbers. I would hope that all agencies in the nation keep accurate numbers. So some relative accurate number we can come to that conclusion. But we worry about ourselves and our neighboring jurisdictions to address this issue here, and I think we do a pretty good job at that. Anyone else?
With WJCT. So when you answer a call and it is a domestic violence call and maybe the victim decides, gets scared, doesn't want to press charges, I mean, what do you guys do? What's that like?
Well, the officers, you got to remember, there are many times that we write police reports that when I say don't go anywhere, they go through the normal process of the report, but at some point in investigating that case, the state attorney's office may speak to the victim, and the victim just totally refused, may not answer any questions, may be uncooperative, or there are other factors that come to light. We still take that serious, and it still gets documented if there is evidence of a crime that has occurred. Anybody else? Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.